Welcome to another episode of Wisdom Personified Conversations with Dudu Msomi. I hope you have been enjoying the conversations we've been having so far. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Maurice Radebe. I know some of us call him Maurice, but it's Maurice Radebe. He is Executive Vice President, Energy Business and Sustainability at Sasol. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for granting us the opportunity to chat to you.
Thank you very much, Dudu. I'm really humbled to be part of this series.
I've known you for a couple of years, and it's always been, hi, how are you? You know, we've never really spoken.
Yeah.
So I've always been curious to know more about you, because I think you have been one of the pioneers in our country in terms of business leadership, the new generation of business leaders. But just going back to your beginning, and I know it comes before Marion Hill, but Marion Hill High School was one of your important beginnings, which we call St. Francis College as well, which is in Pinetown in KZN.
Yeah.
What was your experience being in Marion Hill? And also, just what did you get up to that was mischievous? Not just the good parts, yeah? Yeah.
It was a great experience to be in that college, basically, because it was one of the kind of very stimulating, intellectually challenging, taught by monks and nuns, so a great deal of discipline, a great deal of work ethic that you learn in that kind of environment.
Yeah, it did have that reputation. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it also was a time where formative years of as a youngster, so the whole debating about political consciousness developing at that point in time. It was a really exciting time because one learned a lot. My learning curve, both academically and also understanding the world and self-discovery and who am I and what we want to do was very important, and then one gained during that stage in Marion Hill.
Yeah, I think the first time I met you, I told you that my mom is Radebe, which is why you stood out for me.
No.
That was the first introduction. So that was my first. Hi, my mom's also Radebe.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Thank you.
Anyway, but outside of being in World Vision and is it laminate industries,
Yes.
you've really spent a majority of your time in the energy industry.
Yes.
What attracted you? I mean, I don't think growing up I ever knew of somebody in this industry. What attracted you to this industry, and how has your career been?
The real attraction on this industry is because energy basically is at the core of any economic development.
Yeah.
And I've always been a person who wanted not just to do a job, but to do a job that was the meaning and actually make this world a little bit better than I found it. And therefore the platform of the energy business is that it creates a lot of economic development. It makes a difference in the lives of people. It changes the landscape of the country.
Yeah.
And therefore it's very attractive for me. So I've spent virtually all my working life in the industry in a different capacity. And I'm very excited. It was a very fulfilling career that I've had.
Yeah. In that space and other spaces that you occupy, what do you think your unique value proposition is?
My unique value proposition, I would say, I'm a person who actually likes to start things, build them, and see them to succeed. And some people would say entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, you started Excel.
Yeah, we were part of I was
Yeah.
part of the team that started Excel, particularly the retail side. I was responsible for that, and so growing that business from basically 0 service station to just under 200 service stations.
Wow.
We ran hard, we worked hard, and it was sweat, tears, and a lot of prayer, I can assure you. And but that was the best part of my career, to be honest, because it was starting something from scratch and building it and seeing it grow and becoming a real player in the industry and becoming the most successful black-owned, black-managed company in South Africa.
It's one of our successes, you know.
Yeah.
We don't really talk much about it.
The reason is because we reached a stage where it was becoming very important that because we were in the marketing side of the business. And we needed to get into the refining side of the business in order to balance our portfolio. And at that point in time, then Sasol Oil bought us.
Yes.
And that's how I actually ended up joining Sasol Oil.
Yes. And you were a managing director of that, weren't you?
And then I ended up actually running the Sasol Oil, which was actually quite grateful about that, because normally when a company is acquired, the CEO of the company that is acquired get bulleted, basically.
Yeah.
And I ended up running Sasol Oil, and right now I'm actually chairing Sasol Oil, which is a subsidiary of the Sasol Group. And I'm sitting also on the group executive as an executive vice president looking after the energy business, which include then gas and electricity and oil and the retail network in particular.
And the nice thing about you, I know sometimes we coy about this, that a lot of our business leaders got there because of our affirmative action, which is not a problem, but not all of us have been qualified. You have a BSc.
Yeah.
In applied mathematics and physics. That also makes us proud, the fact that you qualified for what you do. And you have really worked hard, not just enjoyed the position, but also worked hard.
Yeah.
But just looking at the qualification, what does that do? Does it impact the way you think, the way you make sense of the world? Because I'm always curious in terms of the qualifications that we have and the expertise.
Yeah.
How does that shape the way we contribute to the world?
Maths and science train the brain muscle. You know, a brain is a muscle that needs to be trained in a certain way. And it trains you to think logically, which is a very critical skill that you need. It trains you to think systematically, which is a very critical skill you'll need. And it also trains you in problem solving. And problem solving, because if you're doing maths, almost every time you're given a problem to solve.
Yeah.
And your mind really getting to be able to break down a big problem into small chunks and be able to really come to the root cause very quickly and be able then to tackle a solution and generate options on how to solve that problem. And that skill is applied in every field of endeavor. Whether you're running a business, when you're running a business like me, every day, or virtually almost every day, you're sitting in meetings and you're dealing with problems. And you've got to have answers, and you've got to be able to take decisions. One of the also benefit of studying science and maths is you get into really objective data-based decision, and not just emotional decision, not because of your biases or prejudices. You look at the facts, and the facts helps you to make a very good quality decision. And life is about decision making. And I always say the quality of your life depends on the quality of decisions you make.
Yes, that's true.
If you tend to make poor quality decisions, it will reflect in the quality of your life. And that's a message really to all our young leaders, that they need to understand that.
And I suppose also when you look at the 21st century and the prominence of engineers and computer scientists, and I mean, that is the basis, isn't it? That discipline.
It's absolutely critical. In fact, in our country, we need a lot of people with technical experience, right from artisans, apprenticeships, people who, right now, artisans population is actually very old, is actually in their 50s, late 50s. And then from there, you need technicians, technologists, engineers, and then obviously scientists and academics that will help us think through. We are now moving into the fourth industrial revolution. We need to be able to generate people who will think through the major paradigm shift that we will have to think differently, because the jobs that we have now are no longer going to be there in this new world. So that's why it's so important that we all focus on driving our young people to really get into some kind of technical training.
Yeah, it is heavy stuff. Because we do have problems and we need the solutions. And we really need problem solvers. We can't all be waiting for government to solve, even the energy issues that we're having with power at ESCOM. And just creative ways we could be having alternative sources, so there are a lot of things to be done.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the energy challenges we're facing in South Africa today is one of the biggest challenges. It needs obviously innovation, and innovation on how to actually going to be increasing our generation. Because right now we only depend on Eskom. So when Eskom has got a blackout, the whole country has got a load shedding problem. Yeah. But so we need innovation in terms of smart grids, in terms of new generation methodologies, and how can we diversify our generation portfolio and a different energy mix that we need to have in this country, whether coal, gas, renewables. We need a lot of innovation in renewables, solar and wind, and all these things to help making sure that we've got energy in this country, because without energy, no businesses grow, and therefore the economy doesn't grow.
It's at a standstill.
And we are in a deep, deep, deep trouble.
Yeah. You have been reputed to have a passion for unleashing potential.
Yeah.
I get a lot of requests for mentorship. Sometimes not just from the younger generation, but also from my peers. And one of the things they're always talking about is the hostile environments that they find themselves in, where they always have to prove themselves, you know, that they feel like they're just there because of, transformation imperatives. What tips can you give them, in terms of how do they survive and thrive in the environments that they're in?
My tip is that the first thing, once you've been given a job, just do your job to the best of your ability. So master it very quickly, learn it.
Like the basics, the technical stuff of your job.
Just make sure you do your job and do it excellently and do it very well.
Yeah.
Because the job and your success will speak for itself. It will actually shut up those that have got biases, whether prejudice which are racial or prejudice because of gender, whatever it is. If you deliver results, numbers speak for themselves and they don't lie. And normally that's very important. So I would say, first of all, just make sure your job is done so that you don't have anybody using your lack of performance as an excuse to take you out or limit your growth or stifle your growth. So that's very important. Secondly, I think it's so important that you've got resilience, because whether you like it or not, every place has got its politics.
Yes.
Corporate politics sometimes is even maybe worse than normal politics, because there's so much undercurrent around it. And if you try to play it and you get caught into it, you can get caught into a web.
Yes.
Therefore, it's very important that you need to have the sense of where you're going. And the last thing I would like to say is that don't ever put the career path on the hands of even your boss.
Yeah.
Because if you put it in your hands of your boss, and then you actually put all your future in here. The career path is you to determine. If you enter any corporation, they always advertise positions. They always have got learning programs, which I think you need to grab them. You need to be the one to go to your boss and say, hey, listen, I think I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that. This is where I want to go. This is where my career is going. There is no doubt in South Africa there is a strong historical challenge that we have, where a lot of people's talents are stifled. But this is 25 years later.
Yes.
We can't be blaming that all the time. We need to take responsibility. And I know right now in our companies like ours, we're making a huge major transformation, whether it's in ownership, whether it's in employment equity in terms of, and then management control. And those young, talented young people, we identify them early and we give them challenges. And we say, you swim or sink.
Yeah.
And many are swimming, and I'm very proud of them. And they are coming from a diverse background.
I know, we had a classmate, Pinda Vilagazi.
Yeah.
He's doing very well. We're very proud of him.
I'm very proud of Pinda because I'm actually works for me. So I've been mentoring him. We took him to Nigeria in a very difficult environment, and he thrived. We took him to Qatar, Middle East, working with in the Arab community, which is a very complex world. And he thrived then. So we've brought him back now in South Africa and in the energy business. In fact, we've given one of the largest portfolio in my energy business. Yeah. And I've said to him, but You swim or you sink.
And he will
And there is
swim.
no racial issue here.
Yes.
And don't blame apartheid. It's you.
Yes, he will do it. I'm so proud of him.
And
Yeah.
I'm definitely sure he's going to do it.
I totally support that. I do a lot of work around personal leadership.
Yeah.
And one of the modules I give is I am my own best leader.
Absolutely.
Because that's the mindset we really have to come into anything with.
Yeah.
What suggestions can you offer on how we can drive ethical behavior in our society? We have a lot of challenges. And when I say we, who do you interpret as we?
We as all leaders, business leaders in particular, and also government or state-owned enterprises, because I always hold the view that whenever there's corruption, there is a corruptor and a corruptee.
Yes.
And normally corruptor, it tends to be a business person.
Yes.
So it's very important that when we point the finger,
We
three
take
of the fingers are
responsibility.
looking back at
Yeah.
us. So that's very important that way. So how do you do it? 3 ways. First, we need to teach it. We need to make sure that when young people join any business world in the induction courses, the issue of integrity, ethics, code of conduct is really emphasized and they're taught about that. The second one is obviously we need to role model it.
Yes.
Because there's one thing to tell people to do and you don't role
And you
model.
do something different.
Something different. So it's very important that we as leaders role model it in our own personal life and in how we do business and how we actually conduct ourselves. Because that says more than actually just talking about it. Thirdly, there must be consequence management if there's a violation of any ethical conduct. And you see, for many years now in South Africa, actually the especially me who's dealing with young people were telling me, Mr. Radebe, you're telling us to live a life of integrity in business, but actually it doesn't pay. Crime pays. And that is a very dangerous principle to establish in our country. I'm glad with what is happening right now with the whole unveiling of the commission or the Zondo commission and all the inquiries that are going on, because for the first time, we're changing that whole paradigm that crime does not pay. Therefore, consequence management is important so that people, those who are found guilty, need to be locked in jail.
Do you think it will happen though?
I'm very hopeful because at least there is a lot of evidence coming out. Because then that sends a message. We said, what do we need to do? Teach, role model, and then consequence management. Those 3 will really reduce significantly corruption in our country and in the continent.
Yeah, because I think we praise people for the money. We don't care where it comes from.
Exactly.
We just get excited. And that's the thing, money doesn't fall from trees. So if I got money and you cannot trace how I got it ethically, obviously I got it unethically. So I'm also kind of very happy about what's happening, because a lot of us were seen as quite stupid for not having amassed much wealth. But it's kind of like, how am I going to amass wealth if I don't,
I'm sure you look now and says, thank God my name is not appearing there.
No. I'm very content, yes. Sometimes just put in the work,
Put in the work. That's really the answer. Talent will take you to the top, but character will keep you in there. And a lot of people who actually appearing, they are very talented people, but their character flaws cause them to fall like a ton of bricks, which is sad.
Yes.
And we're losing a lot of talented people.
We are.
In terms of black leadership, because of what we're seeing there.
Yeah, I must say, I'm on a particular board, and we've been trying to recruit for a chairperson for the board. And the names we had to keep off the list. It's just crazy, because our pool of experienced, it's great though that it's also giving opportunities to new talent, because now you are forced to look at new people who are not known to be chairpersons, but now getting opportunity, because you don't know what other names are still going to come up with the commission. So everybody's playing safe. So anyway, what is the most courageous decision you've ever taken as a business leader? And what drove you to take that decision?
When we're building Excel, which was, as I said, is one of the exciting period of my career, we penetrated the retail market, we penetrated the commercial market, we penetrated even getting into different countries in Lesotho. But the one area that was a preserve of multinational was entering the aviation jet fuel market.
Oh, yes.
It was a very, very a bold decision on my part to say we will enter this industry because the barriers to entry were immense.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you needed to have was to have an insurance of 1 billion rand. Where do you get that when you're a small entrepreneur?
Wow.
So I said, here's obstacle number one. So how do we get out of it? Looked around the world, jumped into an aeroplane, went into the ExxonMobil in London and knocked on their door and says, listen guys, we realize you don't have a stop to fill up at in OR Tambo now. So why don't we negotiate? We joined to joint venture with them and they provided that. And the second thing we needed, or big obstacle, is technical expertise to be operating in that environment. You need to know what you're doing, because if you fill up the airplane and you make a mistake, that's why they want the 1 billion rand insurance, because so that in case the aeroplane crashes as a result of fuel, you can be able to handle the claims. The third, we had to negotiate with AXA in order to have a lease arrangement, because all the assets there that are fueling aeroplanes are operating within the AXA.
Yes.
So just to get through that lease agreements and negotiations was quite bold. And we finally succeeded, and we entered the market, and we are a player in it.
Yes.
And I think that was a bold decision, in fact, to get into that.
But isn't this interesting? You see why we're having our conversation?
Yeah.
Because those little things we don't get to hear about. Because people just think these things happen, you know?
Yeah.
It's a black leader, oh, he's connected. To even think, okay, who should I go and talk to in London? Who can I partner with? I mean, as you were talking about the logic and problem solving, those are the little connections that we don't necessarily make. That even as a black leader in South Africa, that would not have happened. You also need to establish relationships outside the country, you know, with multinationals and other things. And being black is not going to get you there. So why we're having this conversation, Mr. Radebe, is exactly for that. That I'm trying to draw out this wisdom.
I think you're absolutely right. And this is the danger actually we're creating, is that our young people see us, some of us who've been blessed now to be successful, they just see success.
Yes.
And they don't understand that it's actually a 30-year program that has been going through.
Yes.
And there's a lot of challenges, trials and tribulations, difficulties. And just being able to tackle problems which has got nothing to do with the color of your skin.
And the connections you have, because South Africa is just one market. There are other relationships that we have in the world that you need to unlock for things to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and to come to say, oh, I'm a black South African, who cares? You know, what can you deliver? This is why I'm also emphasizing your technical qualifications. It's the reason I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Because
competence is critical. I think that's one of the reasons we succeeded at Excel, is that we just never compromise on competence. And we looked for black talent, and we found them. And anybody who says they are not there is lying, or he's not looking,
they don't
or
look.
she's looking hard enough. They are there.
They are there.
They are there. And you just need to scratch the surface and then be prepared also to nurture and create an environment that will challenge them and give them the assignments.
Yes.
And the biggest problem we've had, obviously, historically, we were not given an assignments that give us the experience. And we're not given challenging roles to really give us that kind of experience. In a very complex industry like ours, if you've not been on a refinery and understanding the refinery, how it works, if you don't understand the crude trading, if you don't understand how the whole process of supply chain and
the whole value chain, you have to understand. You
have to understand. And that's the reason why part of my passion is to develop the new leaders.
Yes.
That's why we've started a program at WITS where it's a first one, the African Energy Leadership Center, which is training the future leaders in the energy sectors. And my real rationale to do that is because my learning curve took 30 years, and I think we could shorten that for the young people. And so that my grandchild and your grandchild can actually have a shorter learning curve, at least in understanding the entire energy sector, from gas, liquid fuels, electricity first, and understand the value chains, and then decide where you enter into that value chain, whether you enter as a professional or you enter as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's very good. You are a pastor.
Yeah.
at the Gay Family Church in Madrid.
Agape.
And, and also your role at Sasol. Do you find those two roles are in conflict? Yes or no? And what's the reason for the answer you're going to give me?
No, they're not in conflict at all. Because any role where I am, I've always been passionate about developing talent and developing character. So the pastoring platform just added third dimension in that.
Yeah.
Is developing people spiritually.
Yes.
Because the success of any individual, you need to have talent, which means competence in your talent or the trade in which. Secondly, you have a character, and your moral compass must be very, very strong. And then finally, you've got to have spiritual resilience, because you're going to face challenges in life.
Yes.
And if you don't have a spiritual anchor that anchors you inside, you're not going to be able to succeed, even if you're smart. To me, it's just part of my...
It's a continuum.
It's
just
and it just creates that higher purpose for me, because there's a sense in which, I found a reason to be here.
Yes.
All of us needs to ask ourselves, why are you here?
Some of us are still finding the reason. Anyway, in your observation, what are the qualities or the views that South African business leaders possess that are hindering the pace of transformation in the private sector? What breakthrough is needed to change the status quo?
I think there's also an element of self-doubt that we tend to have as a result of long history of apartheid, which has tended to relegate us. Sometimes lack of confidence in making particularly those decisions. But I'm confident. I'm actually not only confident, but I know that things are changing now, because I've been in the corporate life, in the business life, where we're taking major decisions. For instance, in my own organization, we now have taken bold decisions in giving diverse candidates, whether it's black women or men, just as you mentioned, Pinda, and also in the supply chain in terms of preferential procurement. We just need to have in politics we call it political will, but you need to have a business will to transform the organization.
Yes.
And I think leaders that are leading these organizations are taking those decisions now. So to push transformation, because without transformation in the economic sector, political transformation is not enough in order to really address the challenges that we have. So I think boldness is very important, particularly amongst us as leaders.
And you're quite involved in the kind of industry bodies, business bodies,
Good. Yeah.
trying to encourage a different way of looking at things.
I've been involved right at the beginning when we were starting Excel. The whole transformation of the liquid fuels industry was triggered by the fact of our activism, if you were to use the word, when we started an organization called African Mineral and Energy Forum. When I was a leader of the organization, we met with the Minister of Energy at that time. It was Umamphumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. We said, this industry needs to transform. But it's one thing to say rhetorically, but to say exactly which law, which regulation embedded in the industry system, which part of this value chain is actually locked by then multinationals to exclude other people, to be able to point her exactly what she needs to do. Because you can tell political leaders, do this, we need transformation, but where, how?
But you see, this is why you need to have the technical knowledge to be able to direct them.
So we did that, and then with the first Liquid Fuels Charter was signed on the 2nd of November 2000, and we were leading in that, which then led to the mining charter, which then led to all the charters that you formed, which finally led to the BE Commission, and then now we've got a BE Act. So transformation has been my life.
The path has been long. I really enjoy that, and we could talk for another hour. But our attention span of our youngsters, even adults, are quite short, so we have to wrap it up.
I understand.
What is the last word of wisdom you want to share that we must just think about as human beings?
I'll speak to young leaders because that's my passion. I say, young leaders, show up. The world is waiting for you. South Africa is waiting for you. Show up with excellence. Show up with integrity. Show up with a desire not just to serve your own personal needs, but a desire to make this world a little bit better than you found it. And that's the message for me, coming from me to the young leaders. Yeah. Show up. We need you now.
That is it. Show up. I hope you enjoy that. I really could have spoken for another few hours. I hope you enjoy that. And see you next time on Wisdom Personified, Conversations with Dudu Msomi. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you keep up to date with what we're talking about.